I want to, since you guys have brought up microaggression several times, and that does tend to happens in the States a lot as well. So what are some forms of microaggressions that you've experienced or witnessed in Japan, outside of some of the ones maybe we've already discussed, or could be in Japan, could be in the States, or any other country that you might have been to?
I have one other one that was particularly funny. It was when I was filling out paperwork for my son in the Kuyakusho, and so they were asking me like, "Hey, can I have your foreigner card?" I'm like, "I don't have my foreigner card." They're like, "Why don't you have your foreigner card?" I was like, "Because I'm Japanese." And I was like, "Here's my passport." Showed them the passport, clearly a different color than a normal American passport. Like, here's my passport. And they should say, "Okay, so where's your Z card, or where's your foreigner card?" I'm like, "I don't have it." And I just kind of pushed the passport back into her face again, and it wasn't connecting. It was just a situation like, I consider this a pretty like a microaggression, because she didn't get it and she actually apologized profusely. But I was like, Japanese passport. So I was like, I can't have a Zaiyo card if I have a Japanese passport. It's not how it works. But it was literally an awkward 10 to 15 second where she was insisting on having my Z card, where I don't have one, and I clearly handed her a Japanese passport. So that was probably, in terms of one of the more awkward microaggressions, because she clearly, like, it just wasn't sinking in. And once she finally realized what she was doing, she like apologized profusely. But yeah, that was one of the awkward ones that I had. I actually had to just laugh, because I wasn't even mad. I was just like, "Oh, you clearly just you're on left field." So I wasn't even mad about it, but that was a pretty funny one.
Yeah, she was looking at you and it just wasn't connecting.
Yeah.
It's not right here. This is
it's right here.
That can't be. Yeah, that preconception of what they expect when they see you or see someone like you kind of can shut down like critical thought sometimes. So.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think a lot of things, especially when it comes to going to like a bureaucratic area, a lot of things are very processed. So once you get put into once in their mind they say, "Hey, you're in this group," you kind of go into the meat grinder there, and then they process you. But once you're not like that, if you're someone doesn't necessarily align with all those boxes, which is kind of an issue of being either mixed or having multiple nationalities or anything like that. That's kind of an issue in general. But like, once you don't fit that box, they don't know what to do with you, or you get into these random awkward occurrences. So yeah, but I think the more times people, I think this is a good thing, at least for, even though it's annoying for me, it's a good thing. The more times people in Japan see it, they see a person like Naomi Osaka, they can see a Naomi Osaka and a Hachimura Rui, who are actually, when you think about it, like Hachimura like grew up in Japan, then Osaka grew up in America. So like a lot of what they do is particularly different. But the conversation of like who's Japanese, what's Japanese, comes up, and I think it gives people the opportunity to have these conversations. So the more times, if I'm used as the scapegoat or as the dummy to kind of like have people question what they're doing, then I'm okay with that. So.
Yeah, I think we talked about it a little earlier, but I just think too, like my experiences has mostly been around like speaking the language and people being surprised by how well I speak it, and that sparking curiosity as to how is it that I almost speak like a native or sound like a native, and how weird it is for them to see someone like me speak the way that I do. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of other experiences has been to, I was just thinking about like my experiences of Japanese men and how they relate to me. And it can be like two experiences. One is like exotification, I feel like, and another can be complete intimidation, almost kind of like there isn't that presumed idea that I am maybe quaint or submissive or quiet, or maybe I whatever they attribute to what a Japanese woman is, I wouldn't fit that mold, even though they're talking to me and they know I'm connected to the culture, and they know that it runs in my blood. But I always sense this, almost my experience of men in Japan has been almost this kind of factor of like, I don't want to even intimidate them too much, almost have to belittle myself a little bit. So like, I don't know. And I feel like I don't want to go into, I think, just toxic masculinity and within like Japanese men and that exists there, and just insecurity that exists, I think. But yeah, I think that they're just, it's so nuanced. So that's why whenever I'm in a position to talk about it, I'm like stumbling over words, because like, how do I explain in words sometimes the energy that just exists? It's sometimes just energy. You can be in a room and you're being stared at or, or not even maybe blatantly stared at, but you're noticed, and yet no one's wanting to welcome you. It's that, how do you put that into an experience? And I would imagine like living in Japan, just being othered in that way constantly. But yeah, I thought about Naomi Osaka too, and just like a lot of the ridicule and the criticism of her, and wanting to take pride in her accomplishments and own it as Japanese, but at the same time even being bitter about it because of the way she looks almost, and it's very interesting that we can't expand what Japanese looks like, and almost like Japan doesn't want to expand what Japanese can look like. And the thing is, what Japanese looks like has changed, and it's changing. That's the reality, and it's almost like I feel like, and again, I don't live there, so I think, I have to learn from those who's there. But from my understanding and just from my times being in Japan, and like my connection to still is that is so far behind. I mean, America is too, everywhere is, but yeah, it's just so nuanced. It's so nuanced, but it stems from, I think, like, white supremacy, and again, like white aspiration. And and I have compassion for Japan, because I think it's also a victim of these ideologies that are just embedded within the entire world, unfortunately.
Look like you had something to say there.
So in Japan, I've never became a victim, but in the States, or not only in the States, but wherever I go travel to non-Asian country, first of all, they see myself as Chinese. They call me ni hao. Maybe they can be curious about, but for me, I feel like I was judged based on my appearance, but because I look like East Asian, they, straightforward go to, oh, she's Chinese. But whenever I say I'm Japanese, they're kind of surprised. And that is kind of like, not maybe rude, but I'm kind of tired of saying I'm not from China and explaining my nationalities or where I'm from. But I feel that when I've been to South Africa, so majority of Asian people living in South Africa is like mostly Chinese, so they see myself as Chinese person. But I was doing an internship there with most American students. And they're like a lot of white American students, and they will not be told that we ask their identity, like where you're from, because South Africa is like really white dominant country. They're Afrikanas who are white Europe heritage. So I feel that they're really privileged. They're from the States, they're foreigners, but they do not consider us foreigners because they look white. But because I look East Asian face and I'm from Japan or Asia, I can never be and adopt into that community. So I feel that will applies to half Japanese or international people living in Japan. They never feel included, but kind of excluded every time based on the conversation, like where you're from. Oh, you're from China, you're from other countries. So those little conversations, maybe microaggression, will continuously accumulated, and they have to question or wonder about their identity forever for life. So yeah, we should kind of overcome, and Japan first has to acknowledge what is microaggression, what is racism, what is stereotype. We have to start the conversation from the very, very beginning. So compared to the States, we still have to learn from other countries. We still have a racism issue. So yeah, that's been my experience I had in the States or other countries.
Does Japan acknowledge that there's a racism issue, do you think? Or do you think most people in Japan acknowledge that there is a racism issue?
I think no. Like for mixed race Japanese person, they are mostly a victim, so they or observed some kind of racism. So maybe they are acknowledged or really curious about also the Black Lives Matter movement or other like racism issue, racial injustice issue. But majority Japanese, they rarely become a victim unless they travel abroad. So yeah, we need to start a conversation from the very, very beginning. I think.
That's what we're here for.
I had one question. Like, have you, like, in terms of like the Zainichi, like the Korean ethnic people who were born and raised here, but their ethnicity is Korean or Chinese, like, I don't know, because I have a few friends who are Korean ethnicity, and they ended up changing their names to a Japanese name. So like, and a lot of times they had pretty good experiences, and then other ones, I've talked to other ones, they said, yeah, I've been called slurs before and stuff like that. Have you guys heard anything about that, or are you guys aware of this kind of thing? Because I know we talk about the context of obviously African American lives, and that's particularly important. But in Japan, I do feel like there is a little bit of a difference because you can't really like it's pretty like the racism that we're talking about for foreigners is a little bit different for people who are like trying to incorporate. And so I don't know if you guys have had any experience, or have you talked to anybody about it? Have you heard anybody's experience about it? This is kind of an open question.
Yeah, it's not only about mixed race person in Japan, but yeah, mostly applies to Zainichi Korean person in Japan. Or Ainu or people from Okinawa. We tend to have a myth that Japan is a homogeneous country, but actually it's not. And Koreans in Japan are the biggest victim of the racism in Japan. They are really racially attacked, or they have to change their names, or they have a lot of issues questioning their identity. So it's kind of different from African Americans or other race in Japan. So it's kind of really complex and complicated, but we don't really educate it about their history. So most of people are not interested in, but not knowing about their like history or questioning of their identity.
Real talk.
That's why I think we have to recognize what is racism, what is microaggression, what is racial prejudice, or what is the history of what kind of racism did exist in Japan.